Hi, it's Quinby. Today I'll be taking a look at Carrion Comfort by Dan Simmons. This is, make no mistake, one of the best horror novels ever written. It's big and juicy and keeps you guessing, and is definitely not for the faint of heart. No less an authority than Stephen King has this to say about the book. Carrion Comfort is one of the 3 greatest horror novels of the 20th century. Simple as that. At its heart, it's a vampire novel, but it is so much more. It is also a meditation on power and the true nature of evil, and what happens when ego drunk on its own righteousness is given license by power unchecked. The vampires in Carrion Comfort are not of the blood-sucking variety. They are mind vampires, able to completely take over another person's mind and body effortlessly, sometimes using many people at the same time. They vie for power against each other in a violent game of survival and domination that makes for a highly immersive and jolting reading experience. From a game of human chess that takes place at the end of World War II to a life and death battle with surrogates, Carrion Comfort delivers in spades. I remember reading this as a short story before Dan Simmons expanded it into the novel that it is now. Even then, I was literally sucked in from the first line. Don't believe me? I'll read you a sample that starts there. Nina was going to take credit for the death of that beetle, John. I thought that was in very bad taste. She had her scrapbook laid out on my mahogany coffee table, newspaper clippings neatly arranged in chronological order, the bald statements of death recording all of her feedings. Nina Drayton's smile was as radiant as ever, but her pale blue eyes showed no hint of warmth. We should wait for Willie, I said. Of course, Melanie. You're right, as always. How silly of me. I know the rules. Nina stood and began walking around the room, idly touching the furnishings, or exclaiming softly over ceramic statuette or piece of needlepoint. This part of the house had once been the conservatory, but now I used it as my sewing room. Green plants still caught the morning light. The sunlight made it a warm, cozy place in the daytime, but now that winter had come, the room was too chilly to use at night. Nor did I like the sense of darkness closing in against all those panes of glass. I love this house, said Nina. She turned and smiled at me. I can't tell you how much I look forward to coming back to Charleston. We should hold all of our reunions here. I knew how much Nina loathed this city, this house. Willie would be hurt, I said. You know how he likes to show off his place in Beverly Hills, and his new girlfriends. And boyfriends, said Nina, and laughed. Of all the changes and darkenings in Nina, her laugh had been least affected. It was still the husky but childish laugh that I had first heard so long ago. It had drawn me to her then, one lonely adolescent girl responding to the warmth of another, like a moth to a flame. Now it only served to chill me, and put me even more on my guard. Enough moths had been drawn to Nina's flame over the many decades. Mr. Thorne brought the tea in my best Wedgwood china. Nina and I sat in the slowly moving square of sunlight and spoke softly of nothing important, mutually ignorant comments on the economy, reference to books which the other had not got around to reading, and sympathetic murmurs about the low class of persons one meets while flying these days. Someone peering in from the garden might have thought they were seeing an aging but attractive niece visiting her favorite aunt. I draw the line at suggesting that anyone would mistake us for mother and daughter. People usually consider me a well-dressed, if not stylish person. Heaven knows I have paid enough to have the wool skirts and silk blouses mailed from Scotland and France. But next to Nina, I always felt dowdy. This day she wore an elegant light blue dress, which must have cost several $1,000s, if I had identified the designer correctly. The color made her complexion seem even more perfect than usual, and brought out the blue of her eyes. Her hair had gone as gray as mine, but somehow she managed to get away with wearing it long and tied back with a single barrette. It looked youthful and chic on Nina, and made me feel that my short, artificial curls were glowing with a blue rinse. Few would suspect that I was 4 years younger than Nina. Time had been kind to her, and she had fed more often. She set down her cup and saucer and moved aimlessly around the room again. It was not like Nina to show such signs of nervousness. She stopped in front of the glass display case. Her gaze paused over the Hummels, the pewter pieces, and then stopped in surprise. Good heavens, Melanie, a pistol! What an odd place to put an old pistol. It's an heirloom, I said. Quite expensive. And you're right, it is a silly place to keep it. But it's the only case I have in the house, with a lock on it. And Mrs. Hodges often brings her grandchildren when she visits. You mean it's loaded? No, of course not, I lied. But children should not play with such things, I trailed off lamely. Nina nodded, but did not bother to conceal the condescension in her smile. She went to look out the south window into the garden. Damn her. It said volumes about Nina that she did not recognize that pistol. Well, you almost wish I read you some more, don't you? Dan ratchets up the plot and suspense to the point that before you know it, it's 3 in the morning, and you started reading just after dinner. The innocuous old lady, Melanie Fuller, is one of the most deliciously vile creatures I have ever encountered. Casual racism, dismissive of those she obviously feels are lower life forms, and the use of anyone and anything to further her ends leads to some very surprising observations, decisions, and events. But it is perhaps that entitled use of anyone around her, children included, that makes her so terrifying. And what vampire book would be complete without some Hollywood slime in the form of producer Tony Harrod? Yes, it's a big book, but with enormous payoffs. Do yourself a favor and grab this one. You'll have your mind open to possibilities you never imagined. The world around you now even more filled with what-ifs. That's it for this week. This is Quenby Delicious signing off. See you in the next video.